What's up, guys? We're here to go over UFC Vegas 77, Holm versus Bueno Silva. As far as the results for the last card, it's kind of the opposite of the Vittori versus Cannonier card. I think it was. I did horrible with the picks, and then my bets all hit or whatever, so I came out good. Well, it was kind of the opposite on this last card, man. I did pretty good on the picks. I think the only ones I got wrong were the ones that I put money on, unfortunately. And so yeah, I had a play on Kudalice and a play on Ismagulov, and I had $100 on Abus, and all three of those guys lost. So, yeah, I was pretty confident, man, in at least two of those guys, Ismagulov and Kudalice, and I don't know what was up with Kudalice, man. This is a guy that went, 3 hard rounds with Ismagulov. He went 3 hard rounds with Gamrot, and he went out there and he was gassed, halfway through the first round, and he still managed to win the first 2 rounds, even though he was gassed. But man, he looked horrible. He didn't look like himself at all. I don't know what was going on with that. I don't know if it's because it's kind of short notice or what. He thought it'd be an easy fight, so he just came in, out of shape or or what, and he did do quite a bit of damage, but he just wasn't himself, that's for sure. And Ismagulov apparently he can stuff a lot of Arman Sarukian's takedowns, but he couldn't stuff Grant Dawson's takedowns, which I find almost impossible to believe. But whatever, I mean, maybe Ismagulov is just in it for one more check. I don't know, because he was talking about retiring before. So either way, those 3 bets didn't hit. Abus, I guess I didn't take into account that his cardio may not be good. He did really good for the first minute or so of the fight, and then faded and gassed out. In a 5-round fight, it's pretty embarrassing. And I did have one play that hit, and it was a 2-man parlay of Morales and Fakhretdinov. I believe it was like a -110 or whatever, so I did get a little bit of my money back, but it was still a pretty bad night. And even with the live betting, I won a little bit live betting. I still lost a couple units, so yeah, I was hoping that was going to be the most profitable card of the year for me, and it turned out being the worst one. That's the worst one I've had since I've been doing this channel. So good on the picks, shitty on the bets, whatever. It happens. Just gotta take it on the chin and move on. And as far as the contest goes, nobody picked got the 3 picks right. There were a couple that were close. So once again, if y'all wanna do the picks for the UFC 290 card, you can just comment on that video, not this one. Go to the UFC 290 video. You got to pick 3 winners. You got to tell me the winner, the method of victory, and what round, and you can only pick 1 decision. And I had some autographed UFC stuff that I was going to give out to anybody that can get it right. So I'll still do that contest, and yeah, if you want to, just jump on that. And what else? So what I do if you're new to the channel is I go through and I give out all my picks, and then at the end of the video I give my bets out for the card. And I'm available on Spotify, YouTube, Pandora, iTunes, all that stuff. And if you don't want to watch the video and you just want to see my picks or my bets, you can go to my Instagram. It's highkick_fightpicks, and I post all my stuff on there as well. I make bet flyers and pick flyers for the whole card. And also, guys, if there's people out there that don't have Instagram, I did make a Facebook group. If you're interested in that, I'm going to post all my stuff in there too. Feel free to post whatever y'all guys want to post in there, and I'll post the link for it, down below in the comments. But it is just High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook, so it should be pretty easy to find if you're interested. Just something for the people that may not have Instagram or whatever. So, but yeah, man, this my birthday's coming up on the 16th of July, man, and I was really hoping that I was going to get a better card than this for my birthday, but whatever. I mean, it's not quite the main event that I was hoping for, the night before my birthday or whatever, but let's see what fights we lost real quick. And I already know there's been a lot of changes to the UFC 290 card. I'll look at it at the end of the video. But yeah, of course, that's what happens, man. I do my stuff so early that a lot of things do change, and I pride myself on getting my videos out before everybody else, so I'm not influenced by what anybody else is saying, and that's kind of like a thing, with me. So, but yeah, man, I'll look into the other card, and if I don't have everything ready for you by the end of this video, then I'll do like a second video or go over my the changes to the card, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, so we lost Rafael Filo versus Juan Camilo Ronderos. I believe Fialo's opponent got changed. We lost Vicente Luque versus Rafael Dos Anjos. That would have been a really good fight. I believe that one got rescheduled. But yeah, man, let's get into this card real quick, man, and some good fights on here. First up, we got Tucker Lutz taking on Melsik Baghdasaryan. Tucker Lutz is 29 years old, 5'8", with a 72-inch reach. He's 12-3 and 1-2 in the UFC, and he is a plus 180 underdog. And I think we all thought highly of Lutz coming into the UFC, and after his first fight in the UFC, he looked pretty good in his first fight. But we found in his last two fights that his grappling isn't up to par, and his takedown defense isn't very good. And in his last fight, he didn't look good at all anywhere, to be honest with you, anywhere the fight went. And, he is pretty powerful. He's got 6 wins by knockout on his record. He uses a real wide stance at times, which can make the leg kicks readily available if anybody can take advantage of that. And, he does have really good control in the clinch. He has a wrestling background, supposedly, but Pineda was able to just take him down at will. And, but yeah, he does well, sitting back and countering. He was looking pretty good in his fight against Kevin Aguilar, his debut. That's what he was doing. Yeah, he likes to counter guys whenever they're jumping into the pocket. And in the Aguilar fight, he was using his check left hook very well. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage here. The takedowns that he has struggled with in his past few fights against Sabatini and Pineda were mostly trip takedowns. Sabatini is really good with that, and Pineda was doing it as well. Like I said, he does have a wrestling background, and he's going to want to use that in this fight for sure. If he can get the takedowns, he's going to want to do it. He's not going to want to be on the feet at all with Melsik. And yeah, Melsik is 31 years old. He's 5'9" with a 70-inch reach. He is 7-2 and 2-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 220 favorite. Yeah, this guy's a sniper. He's a very good kickboxer. He's got 5 wins by knockout on his record. His weakness is definitely submission defense. Both of his losses have been by submission. And in his last fight, he was looking very sharp against Joshua Culibao, who was a great striker, and Melsik was tearing him up on the feet, busted him up, broke his nose, But as soon as it hit the ground, Culibao got the sub. And yeah, Melsik throws really nice, accurate strikes. He doesn't put out a ton of volume, but when he throws, he usually lands, and he hits very hard. He throws spin kicks very smoothly. He's even throwing axe kicks and question mark kicks. So, it's exciting to see that. He's pretty good at it. And, he has been taken down in the UFC, but he was pretty quick to get back up in his other fights. The Joshua Culibao fight, Culibao kind of jumped on a sub, whenever Melsik was down on one knee or whatever, or was leaning over and going down to one knee. He hopped on the sub, and I believe it was a rear naked choke or whatever it was. I don't remember, but there is definitely a path to victory here for Lutz, man. But I've tried to put faith in him, and I've actually lost money on him twice. So I'm not going to be putting any more faith in Tucker Lutz. I do think there's a path to victory if Lutz can use his wrestling and get the takedowns. But Melsik's not as easy to take down as you would think. Judging off of his fights in the UFC, he really hasn't been taken down and controlled that much. But I do think Melsick is going to knock out Lutz because Lutz does like to go out there and try to strike with guys. And Melsick's going to destroy Lutz on the feet. It's not even close. So be taking Melsick to get the win by knockout, I'm going to say in round 2. Next up, we got Austin Lingo taking on, I do not know how to say this guy's first name, Mekwazal Costa. We're just going to call him Costa because I can't get that name right. Austin is 29 years old. He's 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. He is 9-2 and 2-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 147 underdog. And yeah, Lingo looked horrible his last time out. I really do like his boxing. I think he has very nice boxing. But the problem is that's all really for the most part that he does. He doesn't throw a ton of kicks. He doesn't do a lot of wrestling. He does push a tough pace. He constantly moves forward. He doubles up his jab a lot. Has pretty good cardio, and he throws nice combinations, but and quite a bit of volume as well. It's a winnable fight for him, but I just really want to see him round his game out more. Go for takedowns, throw more kicks, give his opponent something more to think about than just his boxing, because it's predictable. If you know he's just gonna come out there and all he's got to do is box, then all you got to do is take advantage of everything else. And his boxing is great. Don't get me wrong, but just boxing isn't going to get him anywhere. In the sport. And that's just my opinion. And I do like Austin Lingo. He trains right here in Dallas, pretty close to where I live. I want to see him win, but he's got to round his game out more. He's got to start at least faking the takedowns. Go for a takedown just to get the people thinking about it, and then go back to his boxing, or just anything other than just throwing his hands and that's all. Because it's predictable. He's taking on Costa. Costa is 26 years old, 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. He is 19-6 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he is a minus 172 favorite. And yeah, this guy's had a ton more experience than Lingo, which is kind of surprising for a pretty decent, young guy. He's a little bit young, about 3 years younger than Lingo. And, Costa is well-rounded, 7 knockouts, 6 submission wins on his record. He lost his debut, but I believe that was on short notice against Thiago Moises, who is a guy that's kind of up at the top of the division and been up towards the top of the division. So just a little too much, too soon, on short notice. And I think that was also up a weight class as well. I believe that was up at 155, and this fight's back down at featherweight. So considering all that, he did make a good account of himself. Really, he fights southpaw, has pretty good takedown defense. Not that Lingo's going to try and take him down. Costa's going to have a major grappling advantage. He was a state jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai champion in Pana, Brazil. I believe it's Pana, Brazil, where he's from. He's very creative the way he was throwing his shots and coming in at weird angles. And I think this guy's got a pretty high ceiling, man. And I'm going to take him to get the win. I think I'm going to go with by late submission. I think, maybe the first round, Austin will have his success, and I think Costa's going to take over, and then, tire Lingo out, get a takedown, and get a late submission. Next up, we got Terrence McKinney taking on Nazim Sadykhov. And Terrence McKinney is 28 years old. He's 5'10" with a 73.5-inch reach. He is 13-5 and 3-2 in the UFC. And he is a plus 130 underdog. Yeah, Terrence is very powerful in the first round. We've seen that his cardio isn't very good at times. He either went out there and got the quick finish, or he would put his all into trying to get the finish, and then, he would be gassed out. He did seem as if he was trying to pace himself in his last fight, and he ended up getting caught with that flying knee. He's a good wrestler. He's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage. He's very tough. He has the skills, man. He's only lost to real tough guys. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's made the move down to Texas. I'm not sure if he's at Fortis or where he's at, but so he's trying to make some changes, and I think the best thing for him would have been to go train at Elevation, but it's kind of tricky because he does his best work, when he's pushing forward and running the show, but he also may gas out if he does that. So, he throws a lot of knees, when guys are coming into the pocket. This should be a very exciting fight. It's just with the gas tank is you can't really have faith in somebody with a gas tank like that. So, and he's taking on Nazim Sadykhov. He's 29 years old, 5'10" with a 69-inch reach. He is 8-1 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 150 favorite. And yeah, I'm actually very high on this guy. I don't understand why nobody else, sees what I see. And I had a big play on him in his last fight that paid off, but that was a back and forth war between him and Evan Elder. And, it showed me just how good Evan Elder is. He's very, very tough. And Nazim is a master of sport and combat sambo, lifelong martial artist, over 100 amateur fights, very powerful and explosive, throws tons of very well-placed kicks. He's a great counterpuncher. He's very comfortable everywhere the fight goes. He has the wrestling in his back pocket. All but one of his wins have been by finish, and I like his spinning wheel kick and how he uses his uppercuts. He's got pretty good takedown defense as far as, so far in the UFC. I know he's only had one fight, but great takedown defense. He stays pressuring his opponents. There's not a lot of guys that can handle the kind of pressure that he brings, and I think that's going to serve him well in this fight. And he can definitely take a punch. He was getting caught with some good shots by Evan Elder and getting back up, and eventually won the fight. It was stopped due to a cut, but he was winning the fight. And I think he's going to wear on Terrence and get a late finish. I'm going to say round 2 knockout. Next up, we got Estela Nunes taking on Victoria Dudakova. And Estela is 30 years old. She's 5'4" with a 66-inch reach. She is 6-4 and 0-3 in the UFC. And she's a plus 230 underdog. And yeah, she's very talented. A Muay Thai striker. And she dropped Jasmine Uruguay in their fight. If that says anything, Jasmine's very tough. But the weaknesses have been her cardio and her takedown defense. She's got, heavy hands, great calf kicks. Just doesn't quite have the well-roundedness that she needs to get a win in the UFC. She usually comes out and has a lot of success with the striking in the beginning of the fight. And once the wrestling starts, she's kind of out of there. She can't get back up. And, she's always live for a knockout. I want her to win. I'm a fan of her striking. I think she's a very good striker. Very pretty Muay Thai. But I just, I can't go with what I've been seeing here lately. So it's kind of as much as I want her to win, it's hard to go with her, with a gas tank like that with zero wrestling. So she's taking on Victoria Dudakova. She is 6-0, 24 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. 6-0. This is going to be her UFC debut. She's a minus 270 favorite. Most of her wins have been by submission, so obviously she's got the grappling and the jiu-jitsu. Even though Nunes has fought the tougher competition and, has the better striking, I'm fairly confident after watching the tape that Victoria is going to be able to get the fight to the ground and find the submission. And, it's a pretty cut and dry case there. If you watch the tape, you'll come to the same conclusion. So I'm not going to spend forever talking about it. I'm going with Victoria by sub round 2. Next up, we got Gerano Valdez taking on Evan Elder. And Gerano is 31 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. He is 10-2 and 0-2 in the UFC, and he's a plus 235 underdog. And yeah, Valdez is a very tough fighter. All his wins have been by finish. He has very good boxing, real powerful. Just hasn't been able to get a win in the UFC yet. His fights are always wars. They're fun to watch. I don't expect this fight to be any different than his other ones. Both these guys push a really tough pace. He can definitely take a beating. Matt Frivola hit him with everything he could and couldn't knock him out. So the ref eventually did stop it, but Valdez was still conscious. He was just covering up. But whoever is pushing forward in this fight, will be the one winning, in my opinion. For Valdez, his style did very well for him on the regional scene, but since he stepped up in competition, he finds himself getting clipped on his way in, and he throws those real wild strikes, and he's gotten dropped in both his fights in the UFC, and doesn't really have the wrestling to get the takedowns, but does have pretty decent takedown defense for the most part. He's always live for a knockout. He throws a lot of volume. He's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. Very tough, man. This is a fight that could possibly go either way, just because Valdez has lost, both these guys have lost their 2 fights in the UFC, but Valdez is a warrior, man, and he can knock anybody out, so. He's taking on Evan Elder. Excuse me. He's 26 years old, 5'10", with a 71-inch reach. He's 7-2 and 0-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 275 favorite. Evan made his debut up a weight class and just kind of got out wrestled by a way bigger guy in Preston Parsons, and but he really impressed me a lot. In his next fight against sadykhov Nazim, he was matching him punch for punch. It was a back and forth war. He looked really good, very powerful. He even dropped Nazim in the first round. And he was throwing a lot of kicks to the body. He landed like 30 of them, in the first 2 rounds of that fight. And I expect this fight to stay on the feet. Just because Evan couldn't take down sadykhov doesn't mean he can't take down Valdez if he needs to. This fight could go either way. Valdez is hard to finish, and I'm going to be going with Elder to get the win, just because I think he has the wrestling option if he needs it. But this is probably going to be a very close war. I definitely don't think that Elder should be that big of a favorite, a minus 275. And it has to be considering a dog shot, honestly, on Valdez, because that price tag, that's really out of line. Evan Elder is good, but this is a fight I feel could go either way. Neither of these guys have won a fight in the UFC yet, and they're both very tough. I definitely say the value is definitely on Valdez. Because there's no way Evan should be that big of a favorite. But I am going to pick Evan to win. Valdez is hard to put out, so I'm going to take him to win by decision, but this could be a very close fight, so I wouldn't get heavily invested in this fight whatsoever, guys. Next up, we got Carl Deaton III taking on Alex Munoz. And Carl is 33 years old, 5'7", with a 67-inch reach. He is 17-6 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 120 underdog. And Carl made his debut against Joe Selecki on short notice, and he got submitted, pretty easily. He put up a good fight in the first round. He just kept getting his back taken, but he survived the whole first round. A little bit too much too soon for him. I'm always rooting for Deaton. He's got a very heavy left hand. Most of his wins have been by submission, though. He's a tough guy. He's experienced. His fight in the PFL was a split decision loss, which means he's competitive at a high level. We all know how good Joe Selecki's grappling is, so this is a completely different fight. Against I would say against a little bit lower level competition. Than Joe Selecki. Deaton trains at Extreme Couture. Carl usually competes at featherweight, but Tapology has this fight at lightweight. I'd like to see Carl back down at featherweight. He does seem to kind of be a small lightweight, but maybe he feels better at lightweight. Maybe he doesn't have to cut as much weight, and it feels better for him. So can't knock him for that. He goes to the body a lot with his punches. He'll lay back and counter strike at times. He dropped that guy in the PFL in their fight. He came on more and more as the fight went on. He had kind of a bad first round, dropped the guy at the beginning of the second. It was a very close fight, and it could have gone to Deaton for sure. Didn't look that bad, man. Everyone on Tapology is going with Munoz, and I don't really understand why. Deaton's been training hard. I expect him to look good. He's on a full camp, and he's been active. And he's taking on Alex Munoz. He is 33 years old. 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. He is 6-2 and 0-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 140 favorite. And yeah, the main reason I from the jump have been questioning why everybody's going with Munoz is, he hasn't fought in over 2 years. He lost both his fights in the UFC. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage, seems to have good wrestling. I saw him take guys down, but he wasn't able to keep them down, Luis Pena and, I forgot the other guy he fought. Who was the other guy he fought? Nazarat Haparask. Wasn't able to keep him down. And, he dips his head a whole lot, whenever he's going to level change. When he was getting hit with punches, he dips his head down. It's pretty obvious, so it's easy to come up with an uppercut or a knee. He seemed to fade pretty quickly as well, in the Haparask fight. And, his boxing looked pretty decent, but he was mostly just throwing like one shot at a time. Seemed to be pretty powerful, but I don't think he really had any finishes on his record. I think he's going to be the bigger guy here. Honestly, aside from maybe having the wrestling advantage here, he is like he was one of the wrestling coaches at Team Alpha Male, so I'm assuming he's a decent wrestler. But I don't see much more to like. I think I'm going to go with Deaton because he's the underdog and he's been more active, and we know a little bit better what we're going to be able to get out of him here. And I'm going to take him to win by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got a knockout. As long as he can keep it on the feet, I think he'll win this fight. Munoz will probably come out and have a good first round. He'll probably get a takedown, but I think he'll slow down, and Deaton will be able to take over in the last 2 rounds. Next up, we got Tyson Nam taking on maksum. And I'm excited to see this guy, man. If y'all have been keeping up with this guy, he's pretty good, man. Tyson Nam is 39 years old. He's coming up on 40 here in a few months, and he's 5'7" with a 68-inch reach. He's 21-13-1, and 3-4 in the UFC, and he's a plus 305 underdog. And Tyson's very tough, very experienced. He's got a lot of power for this weight class. He has 13 wins by knockout, and he's only been submitted once in his career, and that was in his last fight against Bueno Silva, who's on a great run right now. He's getting up there in age, but it doesn't seem to have really slowed him down much. He's beaten guys. He's beaten the guys he should, and he's only losing to very tough competition. He has a very heavy right hand, and he counters with it. Whenever guys throw that calf kick, that's when he comes over with the right hand. He'll time it. When they go to throw that calf kick, he comes over with the right hand. And, he won 2 fights like that. He knocked out Odie Osborne and the guy he fought before him. And he's got pretty good striking defense as well. He doesn't get hit a whole lot. Tyson's always live for a finish. And, on the feet, he can hang with almost anyone. His power is definitely something, to be worried about. And he's not one to shoot for takedowns very much. Out of all of his fights, I think he's only won 1 fight by submission. So you can tell he sticks to his striking. And there's a lot to like, man. I picked him to beat Silva, and he lost that fight. And there's not a whole lot of other people, there's very few people in the flyweight division that I would pick over Tyson Nam, for the most part. There are a few, obviously, the guys at the top of the division, but it's not often that I would pick a debuting fighter over Tyson Nam, but I am familiar with Azat, and he's a amazing fighter. Azat is 28 years old, 5'8". We don't have a reach on him here. And when I was watching the tape, all the he fought in Brave and some of the, whatever other organization that was, and they show his reach in centimeters, which I'm not doing the math on, sorry, but yeah, man, he's 16-0, and it's going to be his UFC debut. He's a minus 405 favorite. I'm very excited to see this guy in the UFC, man. He looked very impressive and actually hasn't fought that bad a competition for not being in the UFC. 5 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. He's pretty tall and long for the weight class. I can guarantee he's probably going to have a reach advantage here. He's pretty tall and long for the weight class, like I said. He's very powerful, fights off his jab very well. Also has a heavy right hand. His submissions are on point for sure. He beat an undefeated guy his last time out. He showed great takedowns and wrestling in that fight. Heavy ground and pound. He's shown that he is well-rounded. The only thing that he has left to show is that he can do it all against UFC level competition. That's the only thing left for this guy to prove, and I'm pretty sure he can. I would love to see Nam win this fight, but the difference I see here is Azat has the advantage in the grappling and the takedowns. It could go back and forth on the feet, but I'm going to be picking Azat to get the win. I'm going to say he wins by late submission. I'll just say, round 3. I think he's going to play it safe. This is going to be his UFC debut. He doesn't want to risk anything, risk getting caught by Nam. And I think he's going to wear on Nam with his wrestling, man. And I definitely don't think he should be this big of a favorite, in his first fight in the UFC, but I do understand, why everybody's very high on him, and he's, he is worthy of a big price. I just don't think he's worthy of that big of a price in his UFC debut, but either way, in the future, you'll probably never get a line on this guy, at minus 400 or whatever. It'll probably be more than that. Excuse me. Next up, we got Ashley Evans Smith taking on Aline Perez. And Ashley is 36 years old, 5'8", with a 67.5-inch reach. She is 6-5 and 3-5 in the UFC, and she's going to be a plus 125 underdog. And yeah, she's 1-4 in her last 5 fights. You know, I'm surprised she hasn't been cut yet. She hasn't fought in 2.5 years. She does have some knockout wins on her record. Her striking seems to be pretty legit. You know, throws a lot of kicks, a lot of inside leg kicks. She has a college wrestling background, and she has fought the better competition out of these two. But, you know, and based on what I've seen, this fight could probably go either way. Her last fight was against Norma Dumont, who was way bigger than her. And, you know, Ashley's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage. We just don't know. Oh, sorry, 1.5-inch reach advantage. We just don't know, you know, what to expect, you know, from somebody coming in and, you know, being out 2.5 years. I know she's tough, you know, this fight could go either way, really, possibly. I don't know. Aline, well, either way. Aline is 29 years old, or 28 years old, 5'5", with a 66-inch reach. And she is 7-2 and 0-1 in the UFC. And she's a minus 145 favorite. And she's got 4 knockouts on her record, 1 submission. She lost her debut to Stephanie Egger by rear naked choke, but that was up a weight class at featherweight. And, you know, Perez did seem to be quite a bit smaller. She fell victim to the judo of Egger. Perez is very aggressive off of her back, decent takedowns. Striking seems to be pretty good, throws long combinations, can be pretty wild at times. You know, throws hard kicks to the body, throws heavy punches. You know, not much more to say, man. I'm going to be going with Perez, but the only reason that I'm going with Perez is because she's been the one that's more active. She's the younger fighter, and she's going to be, you know, improving constantly. But really, you know, we don't know what to expect from Ashley, so this could be a close fight. You know, it could possibly go either way. Normally, I would say take the underdog, you know, but you know, with her being out 2.5 years, I'm going to stick with Perez. So next up, we got Ottoman Azaitar taking on Francisco Prado. And Ottoman is 33 years old, 5'8", with a 71-inch reach. He is 13-1 and 2-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 105 underdog. And yeah, I was really high on this guy. You know, all of his wins except one have been by finish. 2 knockouts in the UFC. But he came out in his last fight, man, he looked terrible. I mean, you know, Matt Favola is a very tough guy, you know, but Azaitar did not look himself. You know, he's very fast and explosive, uses a lot of feints. You know, when he has somebody hurt, he swarms on them and he'll throw 15 punches in 3 seconds. You know, he can be very wild at times. He's very, very good at countering guys on their way in. And, you know, all that being said, you know, mostly first round finishes, you know, his cardio is a bit in question. You know, he did seem to fade out a little bit in his last fight pretty quick. But he was getting hit with some bombs. So, you know, he's also coming back from a long time off. You know, well, he was in that fight. You know, this was a little bit, let's see, he was out for quite a while, man, almost 2 years before his last fight. So maybe that could have had something to do with it. You know, he's a champion Muay Thai, you know, kickboxer in Germany. Very talented striker. It's kind of hard to go against the kind of power that this guy throws. He's very, very powerful. And he's taken on Francisco Prado. He's 21 years old, 5'11", with a 76-inch reach. He is 11-1 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 125 favorite. And yeah, I picked this guy to beat Malarkey in his last fight. And although he didn't get destroyed and finished, he was just kind of outclassed in that fight. All of his wins have been by finish against not very good competition. But he has done everything a good prospect, you know, should. He's very well-rounded. He hits very hard. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. He's very young, very fast, you know, throws good wheel kicks. He'll throw his left hook, and then the wheel kick will come over right behind it. It's very smooth how he does it, and it sets it up very well. Very smooth, you know, pretty good takedown defense. Could be better. You know, he did get taken down by Malarkey. You know, I wish I had some examples of Azaitar's wrestling, but, you know, of all the tape I watched, it's all been, you know, him knocking guys out, so I don't really know. You know, I don't know if he could get, you know, Prado down or not, but I don't think he would want to. You know, he's so good on the feet, so powerful. Prado has, great arm bars. He's won quite a few fights with it. He goes for a lot of subs off his back. He's very aggressive. He's very good. The question is here, do I go with the power of azaitar or the youth of Prado? And, because I think if it gets past 1.5 rounds, Prado could probably take over. Azaitar is a very accomplished Muay Thai and, kickboxer. And I think he's going to have the advantage on the feet, even though he'll be at a reach disadvantage. And, I kind of want to pick Prado, man, but it's hard for me to pass up the plus money on azaitar. And, man, I think I'm going to take the plus money on azaitar, and I think this fight could be close. It could go either way. Watch the live betting on it. Azaitar will probably come out and have a good first round, and, maybe you could get a good price on Prado after that. But I'm going to be going with azaitar to get the win by, we'll say first round knockout, because that's probably his most likely way of winning. Hard for me to pass up the plus money on somebody like azaitar. And next up, we got Norma Dumont taking on Chelsea Chandler. And Dumont is 32 years old, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach. She is 9-2 and 5-2 in the UFC, and she's a -135 favorite. Yeah, she just fought in April, got the win over Carol Rosa. She was just a little bit bigger than Carol, was kind of able to bully her around. She fights very well in the clinch, uses good head placement to control people up against the cage. Before that, she beat a lady with, only one fight in her MMA career, Danielle Wolf or whatever her name was. So nothing really impressive there. Dumont has pretty good boxing. Looks like she hits hard, from watching her, but she only has one knockout on her record. Her last fight was kind of boring. That's probably why they aren't giving her a title shot, because supposedly that Rosa and Dumont fight was a title eliminator. And now she's fighting, a girl that's only got one fight in the UFC, and only 5-1 overall. So maybe they're not rewarding that, boring fight like they said they were. And, I hope this isn't a title eliminator fight, because they really need to start doing stuff with the featherweight division. We need more fighters, better fighters and more active fighters, you can't just throw somebody, what if Chelsea Chandler wins this fight? And they just throw her in for a title shot against, Irene Aldana or something, and they fight for the belt. It wouldn't make much sense, would it? I don't think so. So, and Chelsea Chandler is 29 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. She is 5-1 and 1-0 in the UFC, and she's a +115 underdog. She's gonna have a 1-inch reach advantage. Good ground and pound from top position. Definitely not a boring fighter. Seems to be pretty powerful. She did get taken down in her debut, but she reversed the position every time. So I can't say that her takedown defense is good, but she does know how to sweep and end up on top. So she's fighting out of Stockton, California. So you got to be a fan of her if you like the Diaz brothers. I think they train at the same gym. She may have the power advantage here. Dumont should probably win this fight. I've got 6 fights to go with, as far as researching Chandler, and there's not much, not much to go off of, of her fighting high level competition. So it's, Dumont should win this fight. She's going to try and smother Chandler up against the cage. I would rather see Chandler win this fight, honestly, but, and I'll be rooting for her, but I'm going to be picking Dumont to get the win by decision. She's probably just going to wear on Chandler, hold her up against the cage, and get separated several times, and just get a boring decision. Next up, we got Walt Harris taking on Josh Parisian. And Walt Harris is 40 years old, 6'5", with an 81-inch reach. He is 13-10 and 6-9-1 in the UFC. And he's a -200 favorite. And, all of his wins have been by knockout. He's on a bad run right now. He hasn't fought in 2 years. I know he's been dealing with a lot outside the cage. His daughter passed away, a few years ago. And I'm sure he's kind of taking some time to reassess his life and stuff and make changes. He's probably going to come back looking good, He has a win over Sergey Spivak by knockout on his record, so that's probably his best win. Even though he's lost 3 in a row, he's lost to really good fighters. He lost to Alistair Overeem, Alexander Volkov, and Marcin Tybura. They're all tough guys. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He's very explosive. He's pretty fast for a big guy. And, the weak part of his game has been his grappling. We saw in the Overeem fight that, once he's down, he has a lot of trouble getting back up, especially with big guys on top of him. He throws very good combinations, super powerful, lots of kicks for a heavyweight, very fast. He's certainly going to have the striking advantage in this fight. And, he may have the advantages everywhere in this fight, honestly. It just depends on how he spent, his 2 years off, what he's been working on, if he stayed in shape or he's just, coming back for a check. These are all things that you don't know until the fight, so. And he's taking on Josh Parisian. He is 34 years old, 6'4", with a 79-inch reach. He is 15-6 and 2-3 in the UFC, and he's a plus 170 underdog. And yeah, man, Josh had a lot of knockouts before the UFC, but he's only had one finish in the UFC, and honestly, he's only beaten like really low-level heavyweights. And he's going to be at a speed disadvantage here. I think the only place Josh may have an advantage in this fight, possibly, is maybe the grappling, but I'm not really sure what to think about his wrestling and grappling because, he used it to beat Alan Badeau, who's not very good and can't grapple, or, is a good striker but can't grapple. And but then he turned around and got ragdolled by Dontel Mays, so, that might have been just a one-off, thing. So Dontel Mays isn't really that good of a wrestler or grappler. He was throwing Parisian around, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet, man. The only way that I think Walt loses this fight is if he just let himself go during his 2 years off. And, I think he'll be able to do enough even if he didn't take it serious to get a first round finish, in this fight. I'm going to be taking Walt to get the win by knockout, first round. Next up, we got Albert Duraev taking on Jun Young Park. And man, this is kind of a weak card, man. When I'm going over the tape and researching this card, I mean, there are a couple good fights, but going over this card, man, I was just like not into the fucking, into it. Just this card doesn't excite me very much, man. It's too bad. Too bad this is the one before my birthday. I was hoping for something exciting. Now the card after this, the London card at the O2 is going to be really good. Tom Aspinall coming back. It's going to be exciting. Albert Duraev is 34 years old. He's 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. He is 16-4 and 2-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 130 underdog. And yeah, I'm not high on Duraev, man, at all. Supposedly, he's got a really good wrestling background. He was getting a lot of wins on the regional scene. He couldn't get Joaquin Buckley down, and the only reason he won the Chitty fight was because Chitty went out there and didn't do anything for half the fight. Chitty didn't do anything until like the last minute of that fight. And, Chitty has really bad takedown defense, so the fact that he got a takedown on him doesn't impress me. What he does have going for him is, he has decent cardio. He pushes a tough pace, with his wrestling, and if he can get the takedowns, he has really good submissions. He has 9 wins by submission, only 3 KOs on his record. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He swings big a lot, and he throws. When he throws long combinations, he leaves his chin up in the air. He's very hittable. This is a winnable fight for Duraev. It's possible, that he could get this win. Both these guys kind of like to fight the same way. And, it's possible this fight can mostly just play out on the feet because both these guys like to use their grappling. And, maybe they'll cancel each other out and it'll just be a striking match. In which case, I think, Duraev might be more powerful, but I'd say Park is the more technical boxer. Park is 32 years old. He is 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. He is 16-5 and 6-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 150 favorite. And his last 2 fights have been wins by rear naked choke. He has really good cardio, great grappling, and his striking is up to par as well, man. And he's got great double leg takedowns and high crotch takedowns. He was known as a boxer early in his career, but he has really worked hard on his wrestling. His last 2 opponents, not very high level, but he did look great. He didn't get hurt at all in those fights. Didn't take any damage. if you go back, to his last loss against Gregory Rodriguez, he was looking good in the striking before he got caught. He was doing well with the calf kicks, using the jab very well. He did give up the back and was able to survive until the end of the round. Then at the start of the second, he rocked Rodriguez and he got him, with some big shots and was landing a bunch of shots, but he was in putting a beating on Rodriguez, and then he got too wild and he got caught. And he hasn't made that mistake again yet. This is one of those fights where normally I would tell myself to take the underdog. But I really just can't stand Duraev, man. I don't know why, but and I like more of what I've seen out of the Iron Turtle Park. So I'm gonna go with Park to get the win by decision. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong on this one, but yeah, I think Park's got a better shot at winning this, man. He's fought the better competition. Next up, we got the main event. Holly Holm taking on Myra Bueno Silva. And Holly Holm is 41 years old, coming up on 42 in about 3 months. 5'8" with a 69-inch reach. She is 15-6 and 8-6 in the UFC, and she's a -149 favorite. And I imagine whoever wins this fight ends up fighting for the bantamweight title against, Aldana or somebody. I think Holly should get another title shot before she retires. I thought she won the Vieira fight. It was pretty boring. All Vieira did was hold her up against the cage, and Holly was landing the better shots. She's looked good. The only thing I can really say against Holm is that, she's not getting any finishes. She's a very accomplished striker, boxer, kickboxer, all that. And, her wrestling and grappling has come a long way, this isn't the fight I was hoping for the main event, coming up on a good weekend for me. But, man, Holm's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. She's just very good at kind of picking people apart, from range. Her last two opponents just tried to smother her against the cage and not do anything. And, Holly was able to turn it around and get the takedowns on her last opponent, on Santos, and beat the crap out of her. She's getting up there in age, but she hasn't really slowed down at all. She's very good at counter fighting, counter punching. Knows when to put the long combinations together. Her grappling looked on point in her last fight, like I said. She was using good shoulder pressure to keep the fight to the ground, and great ground and pound, great elbows in close, pushes a really tough pace. She was getting the takedowns, good, trip takedowns, not so much double legs, just trip takedowns, and she's taken on Bueno Silva. She's 31 years old, 5'6" with a 66.5-inch reach. She is 10-2-1 and 5-2-1 in the UFC, and she's a +129 underdog. And I'm a big fan of Silva's. She has amazing jiu-jitsu, 7 wins by submission on her record. That's her bread and butter. You could say that this fight could possibly be, reminiscent of her fight with Manon Fiorot. Fiorot's also a good striker with good takedown defense. And she just couldn't get anything going in that fight. But that fight was also down a weight class. Silva's looked a lot better at bantamweight. She has an amazing armbar. She transitions to her armbar very smoothly. Holly's going to be way bigger. I can say good things about Myra's striking, but she's not better than Holm on the feet. Aside from maybe having a little bit more effective calf kicks. She's pretty good in the clinch. I mean, if anybody is going to submit Holly, it's Silva, but I don't think she's going to be able to get Holly down. Holly has pretty good takedown defense, and Silva, Silva doesn't really have good double leg takedowns or anything. So I have a trouble picturing her getting Holly to the ground. But if she does get Holly to the ground, she's got a great shot at winning. I would say that I actually more so would like to see Silva win this fight, but just because she's been getting more finishes or whatever. But I would also like to see Holly Holm fight for a title one more time. I'm going to take Holly Holm to win by decision. Could be a pretty close fight, man. Just depends. It's a 5-rounder, so anything can happen in 5 rounds. I guess we've probably never seen Bueno Silva go 5 rounds, so there is that to worry about as well. We know Holly can go 5 rounds. And yeah, man, so And that's it as far as my picks go. Sorry, this card's kind of not even into this card, for the most part, but uh, yeah, as far as my bets go, guys, I've got a small play on Ottoman azaitar at plus 110. Like I said, I couldn't turn down that plus money. It's just it's actually less than a quarter unit. So, and then I got another play on Nazim sadykhov. It's minus 145, and that's a 2 unit play. It's probably my most confident pick on the card. And then I got another play. It's a 2-fight parlay. It's got Costa and Azamat Maksum, and it's a minus 110. I caught them at a little bit better price than what they're out right now. I was hoping to get them at plus money, but I couldn't. But it was close. It was close enough. Minus 110 is pretty close. And that's a 1 unit play. And as far as my bigger parlays go, I'm still working on those. I haven't put them in yet. And but I will post them. I'll post them on the Facebook group. I'll post them on Instagram, and I'll post them on the on YouTube as well. So if you're subscribed to my channel, you'll be able to see all that stuff. It'll pop up in your feed. And yeah, man, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate all you guys. I'm getting close to like 350 subscribers now, and I appreciate it very much. And yeah, that's it for me, guys. Thank y'all, man. Y'all have a good one.